Hello everybody and welcome back to Red Eagle Politics. Make sure you guys like this video down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. And today in this video we're going to be doing an election prediction. We have not done very many on this channel since the midterms, but nevertheless this is also our first prediction for the 2024 Republican primaries, going state by state and looking at the percentages and delegates that Donald Trump and some of these other challengers are going to be receiving in the first four states. Technically, it is true that there has not been an official set order for primary dates just yet. However, it is very likely that the first four states very well could consist of Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina, and Nevada. Either that or they'll be four of like the first 5 or 6 states. They're all going to vote before Super Tuesday, and they will be super consequential at determining the eventual outcome of the Republican nomination. Donald Trump so far leading in polling. He said a lot of things happened to him politically that traditionally a lot of people would say would not be super favorable. For example, Republican losses in the midterms, as well as the fact that he has been indicted over nonsense. They've thrown all these investigations at him, but they are bouncing off not only in primary polling, but in polling for the general election. And his main challenger, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, has announced, but his announcement was not exactly something that went very smoothly. Even his supporters were saying the Twitter space was nothing short of a disaster. And Donald Trump, as a result, is cruising to the nomination so far, although a lot can change because Ron DeSantis is sitting on a war chest right now that is likely going to be used. He'll be spending a lot of time in these early states, but will it amount to much? Not necessarily, because you look at Michael Bloomberg, he spent, $300 million just to win American Samoa. So we're going to fill out the first 4 states here. We're going to look at the polls, but also predict the trajectory of the race and analyze what is likely to happen between now and Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina, and Nevada in this video. But first, I have to tell you guys about redeaglepolitics.com, my exclusive website, the one-stop shop for all exclusive Red Eagle Politics content for just $5 a month or 16 cents a day. You guys can sign up and get all of my exclusive videos. You get access to the Discord, call-in access to the streams, which we're going to be doing a call-in stream tomorrow for the first time in years, by the way. And you also get access to all of my articles and the newsletter there at redeaglepolitics.com. Make sure you guys sign up. But nevertheless, I think it's important that we dive into this, starting off with the state of Iowa. Now, Donald Trump is polling nationally in the mid-50s. And that is higher than he was polling before the midterm. So we talk about something that a lot of people speculated would have been a political disaster for Donald Trump. It actually was not a political disaster. It was a short-lived hype bounce for Ron DeSantis, and he's struggling to recapture that magic that he had there. But nevertheless, we do have to look at the statewide polling for the early states in this, the national polls. Even though the national polls in 2022 were pretty accurate, they've been more accurate than the state polls recently. But these state polls are what we need to look at for these first 4 states. And obviously, we have to take that with a grain of salt. But it's important to note that Donald Trump has a sizable lead in the state of Iowa. And we haven't seen a lot of polling, but Iowa, even though it's a state that Donald Trump did not win in the 2016 caucus, he has a very large support base in the state. He outperformed all of the polling there in the 2020 primary, even though I wouldn't look too much into that because he was the incumbent president at the time. But what we do know is that Iowa is a state with a very large white working class population. Donald Trump is likely going to campaign down the stretch in the state of Iowa. Ron DeSantis has spent a lot of time and money there already. He's kind of not doing so well in the polls. I think Donald Trump will end up with over 60% of the vote in the state of Iowa when it's all said and done. I think Ron DeSantis is going to get somewhere in the 20s, probably 25%. He'll be spending a lot of money to get to that point, and a lot of that money is going to be exhausted in Iowa, New Hampshire, probably not going to perform as well in some of those later states. And it is true that you will see people like Nikki Haley and Tim Scott end up getting some of the vote there. Probably not a lot of the vote, as we see there. And somebody like Vivek Ramaswamy, he'll probably get a few points as well. He's kind of like the Andrew Yang of this cycle. Pretty much a lot of people are okay with him or like him. That doesn't necessarily mean that they will vote for him at the end of the day, and maybe we could give a little bit to the other as well in Iowa. So Donald Trump already having a sizable delegate lead out of Iowa, but we have to pivot to the state of New Hampshire. New Hampshire is a state that has a lot more independents typically voting in their primary, and that's also one of the reasons why Donald Trump is not polling as well in these states. Now, in this video, I'm going to assume that Chris Sununu does not run. I think that he's going to tease the announcement the same way a lot of people expected him to run for Senate, but he ran for re-election for governor. I think you're going to see the same thing happen this time around. He's teased an announcement, although keep in mind Sununu in the race would shake things up, although I think that it probably would help Donald Trump because I think he would take more votes away from Ron DeSantis than he would from Trump. But still, I do expect Trump to get a near majority in the state of New Hampshire, probably around 50% of the vote. And you probably will see DeSantis get some of those crossover independents. He'll probably get the Sununu endorsement, get around like 32%, and then you'll see the votes pour in for people like Haley, Scott, maybe a little bit here and there for Vivek or whatever. Maybe we'll give Trump the extra delegate there. He gets to around 54%. That sounds about right, but either way, nonetheless, he is on track. He's got 37 delegates out of the gate. He has a 21 delegate lead. Not only that, DeSantis is struggling to really pick up support. He's going to stay in the race because he's going to be waiting for states like Texas, where he probably goes down, in Florida, which is winner take all. But even then, it's apparently 50-50 in some of these polls. Now, we're only going to do the first 4 states in this video. We've already done 2 of them. I'm sure as we get closer, we get more intel, we'll be doing a 50-state prediction for the 2024 primary. But nonetheless, I think it's important we fill out South Carolina as of now. On the Republican side, South Carolina typically, historically, votes before Nevada, unlike the Democrat side, where they have Nevada voting before South Carolina. But still, let's go to the polls in South Carolina, which is interesting because you have 2 high-profile statewide officials or senators or governors, whatever you want to call it, from the past 5 to 10 years. Tim Scott, the incumbent senator, and then you have Nikki Haley, who was governor until 2017 when she stepped down to become UN ambassador. And you have 2 people there that are more on the establishment side of things and will likely take votes away from Ron DeSantis. Trump has that southern rural vote pretty much on lock in South Carolina. Nobody's going to deny that. He's going to have the support more likely than not of, obviously, we know Lindsey Graham, but also the support from popular Governor Henry McMaster, who is much better on the issues and an endorsement you actually want to tout compared to Lindsey Graham, who's probably one of Trump's weaker endorsements overall, but at least Trump now is keeping him at more of an arm's length. So Trump probably gets close to 56% of the vote in South Carolina, and then you'll see Nikki Haley probably get like 12% of the vote. Tim Scott might actually do better. He's racking up more endorsements. We'll give him 16% or so. Maybe we'll dial him back to 14. Then we'll get DeSantis up there, give him the rest. And Vivek and the others probably drop out by this point. They might get some leftover votes, but not enough to make a difference. So Donald Trump, again, taking a W in South Carolina. He now has a 40 delegate lead over Ron DeSantis. Nikki Haley and Tim Scott likely both drop out after South Carolina. I don't know who they exactly endorse, if they're going for VP. Maybe they do decide to try and grift off of Trump, but Trump probably isn't going to be as receptive to them as he would have been in the past, given the fact that they've had some mixed statements about him recently, and he's keeping tabs of that. So by the time Nevada rolls around, I do expect it to be a head-to-head primary between Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis. Now, I don't believe we have a lot of polling on Nevada. We could look at this right here. Donald Trump, there's been one poll out of Nevada that we've seen since the midterms, and Trump actually is doing better in that poll than the previous poll that was conducted where he just had a 7-point lead. Now he's up by 30. I think Trump probably takes it by around that margin. He probably has like a, let's say, a 68-32 primary win around that margin, maybe even 70-30 by this point. Or around there. We'll be nice, actually. We'll go 68-32. So already in the first 4 states, it's apparent that Ron DeSantis is going to struggle to get his campaign off the ground. He has to deal with a lot of these other people in the mix that likely are going to be taking more votes away from him than they are taking votes away from Trump. Although I will say that just because somebody's voting for Tim Scott in the primary does not mean that they would prefer Ron DeSantis to Donald Trump. But Trump is going to clear 60% in Iowa, I believe. He'll get close to a majority, if not that, in New Hampshire. Same thing with South Carolina, where DeSantis likely has people taking votes away from him. And by the time Nevada rolls around, Donald Trump likely will have a decisive primary victory over Ron DeSantis. Now, if DeSantis stays in the race for Super Tuesday, he probably will. He'll probably take more L's, and it's just going to drag on the primary more than it really needs to be dragged on. And when Florida comes around, if he loses Florida, especially decisively, that's not going to be something that's going to look good on his legacy, and he'll just be Ted Cruz / Marco Rubio, the sequel, but for 2024. And we're kind of seeing history repeat itself once again, just like what we saw in 2016. Now, we'll see what happens. A lot can change in the polling, but as of right now, this is my primary prediction for the first 4 states. Let me know if you guys want to see a full primary map sooner than later in the comments down below. But that's pretty much it for this video. Like this video down below, comment down below, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications so you never miss another video. Follow me on social media. The links are all in the description down below. As always, guys, thanks for watching. Red Eagle, out.